Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. 3 years Microsoft has been the most powerful player in AI that nobody talks about as an AI company. It invested $13 billion in OpenAI. It built Azure into the backbone of the AI industry. It put GPT into every product it makes. And for all of that, the models that made Microsoft relevant were not Microsoft's models. They were OpenAI's. That just changed. At Microsoft Build 2026 in San Francisco on June 2nd, the company launched 2 models under its own name, MAI-Thinking-1, its first in-house reasoning model, and MAI-Code-1-Flash, a 5 billion parameter coding model that went live the same day across every tier of GitHub Copilot, Free, Pro, Pro Plus, and Max. Both were built end-to-end by Microsoft. No OpenAI weights, no Anthropic distillation, no third-party model underneath. And that last detail is not a technical footnote, it is the entire story. Here is what the models actually do. MAI-Thinking-1 is a reasoning model, the kind designed to work through complex multi-step problems rather than producing fast single-turn answers. It runs on a sparse mixture of experts architecture with 35 billion active parameters and a 256,000 token context window. On AIME 2025 and AIME 2026, the hardest mathematical reasoning benchmarks in public circulation, it scored 97.0% and 94.5% respectively, placing it among the top-performing reasoning models available. On SWE Bench Pro, the software engineering benchmark that has become the standard for measuring real-world coding capability, Microsoft says MAI-Thinking-1 matches Claude Opus 4.6. In blind side-by-side evaluations run by Surge, an independent human rating firm, evaluators preferred MAI-Thinking-1 over Claude Sonnet 4.6. The model is currently in private preview through Microsoft Foundry. MAI-Code-1-Flash is different in character but arguably more immediately significant. It is a small, fast, inference-efficient model purpose-built for the GitHub Copilot environment. With 5 billion parameters, it is designed to be cheap to run and quick to respond. But the benchmark numbers are not modest. It outperforms Claude Haiku 4.5 across every coding benchmark Microsoft tested, including a 16-point lead on SWE Bench Pro, 51.2% versus 35.2%, and a 28.9-point lead on IF Bench for instruction following. It solves harder problems with up to 60% fewer tokens than comparable models, using what Microsoft calls adaptive solution length. Stay concise on trivial requests, spend more compute on complex ones. As of June 2nd, it is the default model under GitHub Copilot's auto picker. 15 million developers who opened Copilot this week were using a Microsoft model, not an OpenAI one, possibly without knowing it. Now here is where the surface story ends and the actual story begins. MAI-Thinking-1 and MAI-Code-1-Flash are not research projects. They are the visible output of something that started in October 2025, when Microsoft renegotiated the contract that had quietly governed its entire AI strategy. Until that renegotiation, Microsoft's partnership agreement with OpenAI included a clause that contractually prohibited Microsoft from independently pursuing artificial general intelligence. That restriction was not widely reported at the time it was signed. It was quietly removed last autumn as part of a broader deal restructuring that also ended Microsoft's exclusive license to OpenAI's intellectual property, eliminated Microsoft's revenue share obligation to OpenAI, and allowed OpenAI to source compute infrastructure from providers other than Azure. In return, Microsoft retained its license to everything OpenAI builds through 2032. The trigger for the renegotiation was OpenAI's decision to expand its own infrastructure footprint beyond Microsoft, striking compute deals with SoftBank, Oracle, and others under the Stargate project. Microsoft used that moment of leverage to rewrite the entire agreement. The company that was once contractually constrained from competing is now contractually free to do exactly that. Build 2026 is where it started spending that freedom. The person Microsoft handed the resulting freedom to was Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft AI, co-founder of DeepMind, and one of the most prominent AI researchers of the past decade. Suleyman formed the MAI Superintelligence team in November 2025 with a stated mission of building what he called humanist superintelligence. In a March 2026 internal memo first reported by Business Insider, Suleyman wrote that he intended to focus all of his energy on superintelligence and deliver world-class models for Microsoft over the next 5 years. He is building 7 model families in parallel: transcription, voice, image, video, reasoning, code, and a frontier large language model that would compete directly with GPT-5. The first 3 shipped in April. MAI-Thinking-1 and MAI-Code-1-Flash are numbers 4 and 5. The frontier LLM is what comes after. MAI-Thinking-1 and MAI-Code-1-Flash are the first 2 pieces of that plan to ship publicly, and they shipped with benchmark numbers aggressive enough that nobody in the industry is calling them irrelevant. Dan Ives, managing director at Wedbush Securities, put the competitive tension precisely. Microsoft needs OpenAI for Azure revenue today, but they're simultaneously building the capability to compete with OpenAI tomorrow. It's a tightrope walk that only a company with Microsoft's resources can attempt. That framing is accurate, but slightly understated. OpenAI still represents 45% of Microsoft's cloud backlog. GPT 5.5 remains the primary language model powering Copilot and Microsoft 365. The partnership is not over. It is transforming into something that does not have a clean name, not competitors, not partners, somewhere in between. NYU Stern professor Robert Siemens called it continuing to rely on a really important partner, but also hedging your bets. That hedge just became public. The skeptics have legitimate points. Microsoft's benchmark claims for MAI-Thinking-1 have not yet been independently reproduced. The company published a preprint describing its evaluation methodology, but external labs have not yet confirmed the numbers. The benchmark that matters most to enterprise buyers, real-world developer productivity on their actual code bases, is not what SWE Bench or AIME measures. ChatForest's developer review of MAI-Code-1-Flash was careful to note it as a good everyday coding model, not a state-of-the-art agentic coder, and recommended users test it against their own repositories before treating the benchmark numbers as a buying decision. The gap between a 51% SWE Bench Pro score and Claude Code, which is running the enterprise AI coding market right now, is still measurable. The investors are also watching a different number entirely. Microsoft reported 17% total revenue growth and 39% Azure acceleration in its last earnings report, and the market still punished the stock because capital expenditure appeared to be outpacing near-term revenue. The MAI launches are, in part, Microsoft's answer to that skepticism, tangible products the company can point to that justify the infrastructure spending. When analysts ask why Microsoft is burning billions on data centers, MAI is now part of the answer. There is a structural advantage in Microsoft's approach that none of the coverage has fully captured. MAI-Code-1-Flash was not benchmarked externally and then deployed into GitHub Copilot. It was trained inside Copilot's production harness. It learned how to interact with surrounding tools, editor context, and agentic workflows by running in the exact environment where it would be evaluated by real developers. That is a different kind of model than one trained on code datasets and then tested on coding benchmarks. Microsoft is betting that production environment training produces reliability that benchmark optimization cannot replicate. The 15 million developers now using it daily are the actual test. The relationship Microsoft and OpenAI have built is unlike anything in corporate history. Microsoft holds an estimated $135 billion stake in OpenAI, representing roughly 27% diluted ownership. It provides the vast majority of OpenAI's compute infrastructure. It receives approximately 20% of OpenAI's revenue under their agreement. And as of June 2026, it is also building models that compete directly with OpenAI's for the same enterprise customers, the same developer workflows, the same GitHub Copilot users. Both companies are aware of this. Neither has called it a problem publicly. The renegotiated contract was designed to allow exactly this kind of competitive coexistence. But competitive coexistence between companies this entangled does not stay stable forever. Microsoft spent 3 years building its AI business on OpenAI's foundation. What Build 2026 announced is that it has spent the last 8 months quietly building a second foundation underneath the first one. The 7 MAI models Microsoft has now shipped, from transcription to voice to image to reasoning to code, cover almost every capability category that OpenAI offers commercially. That is not a coincidence. It is a roadmap. The question is not whether that second foundation will eventually replace the first. The question is, how fast, and what happens to the partnership when the gap between what Microsoft needs OpenAI for and what Microsoft can do itself gets small enough that the economics of dependence no longer make sense. Thanks for watching. This is AI Tides, and I'll see you in the next one.